Welcome back, everybody, to the live webinar here at BINA. Today's topic is the obligation to guard one's health. That Torah obligates us to look after our bodies and to make sure that we are healthy and strong. So we will look at this in three parts. We'll look at the sources for this. What is the source for this mitzvah? Where do we know this mitzvah from? And from the various halachic authorities which bring down this mitzvah. And then, of course, we need to discuss the reason for this mitzvah, why we are commanded to take care of ourselves. And then on Thursday, we will continue to discuss some more practical applications to what does it mean to guard one's safety in very more specific situations. So first of all, some sources. In Tractate Tainis in the Talmud over there brings a verse, a very famous verse, discussing the creation of Adam Harishon, of the first man, and it says over there, "Vayihi ha'adam lenefesh chaya," and the person became an alive living being, really, if you translate that literally. And that word chaya seems to be a little bit extra. I could have just said that the person became a nefesh, the person became an alive soul. Why does it have to add the word chaya? And the Gemara over there, the Talmud over there explains that what it's telling us is that the neshama, the soul which I have placed into you, hachiyeh, make it alive. In other words, keep yourself alive, keep yourself healthy, keep yourself alive and well. So from there we see that there's a commandment. When God created the first human being, God commanded the first human being that I created you, and it's your job to take care of yourself. The Medrash in Vayikra Rabbah brings down a very interesting concept, based on a pasuk in Chumash, where the pasuk says, "V'heisir Hashem mimcha kol chayli," that God will remove from you any sickness. And the Medrash over there says a fascinating thing, that this is the percentage which the Medrash gives, 99% of sicknesses is because of our fault. Because of something that we did, that we were negligent in our health. 1% comes from God. And it says that from the verse that it says, Mimcha kol chayli, from you is all sickness. Not all, but most. Most sickness is from you. Now, I'm not going to claim to truly understand exactly this percentage, 99 and 1, but what I will say is that what it means by sickness over here doesn't only mean necessarily a very serious sickness. It can include a cold, it can include a regular normal sickness, so to speak. And that, if you think about it, a lot of times does come as a result of our negligence. It can come as a result of what we eat, if we don't eat right. It can come as a result of what we wear, as the commentaries on that Medrash explain. That is actually what it's talking about. That people go out in the summer and winter not dressed accordingly. If you go out in the summer dressed too hot, or if you go out in the winter and not dressed properly for the cold, that can cause that is a big reason for a lot of the regular sicknesses which we have. Obviously, of course, there are serious illnesses which can come to a perfectly healthy person, and that is obviously a decree from God, and we don't know why that comes. But what the Medrash is trying to say is that a lot of sickness can be avoided if we only took care of ourselves properly. The Rambam, Maimonides, again, one of the greatest halachic authorities, says a powerful sentence. And I'll just read it inside in English. I'll quote him in English. Obviously, it's in Hebrew, the original, but I'll just translate it. He says that having a healthy and whole body is necessary for the ways of God, meaning it is part of serving God. Part of serving Hashem is having a healthy body. Why? And he explains, because it is impossible to know God's wisdom, it is impossible to learn Torah properly if a person's not healthy. We all know that from ourselves. When we're not feeling well, even if it's a little bit under the weather, it's very hard for us to concentrate, it's very hard for us to think, it's very hard for us to do anything. Therefore, in order to fulfill God's commandments, in order to learn God's Torah, you need to be healthy. And the Rambam then goes for a number of chapters and actually explains in great detail what a person should do in order to be healthy. Now, it's interesting that the commentaries explain, the later commentaries, more in our generation, explain that a lot of things that Rambam says over there, it says like to eat certain things in the winter and not eat certain things in the summer and to sleep this amount, etc., etc. A lot of the commentaries explain that not necessarily does every detail apply today. Not because, God forbid, Torah is not eternal, Torah is eternal, and Torah is for every generation, rather because our bodies have changed. And that is a fact, that the way our bodies work have changed throughout the generations due to a lot of external factors, due to the stress of the way we live, due to pollution, due to various things in the atmosphere. The way our body works has changed. And the Rambam was talking about over there the way the body worked in his generation. However, the idea which he says, the concept which he's trying to bring across is of course crucial, is of course very important, that being healthy, guarding one's health, is definitely part of the ways of Hashem, part of serving God. There's a very interesting law in another place in Rambam, where the Rambam is discussing, Maimonides is discussing the laws of the court, the Jewish court, giving various punishments. For example, there's certain sins get the punishment of lashes, they get whipped, certain sins get the punishment of death. That's for another time. We have discussed that in the past, exactly when that happens, where that happens, if that happens. However, he says a very interesting thing, that the Torah says that when can a court give a punishment? Only if there are two witnesses that testify that this person did this and this sin. Let's say, however, the guilty person himself or herself comes to the court and says, I have committed this sin, which is liable to the death penalty. He comes and admits on his own. You would think that of course he should get the punishment. If you believe two witnesses, for sure you should believe that person himself who committed the sin. However, says the Torah, no, you do not give that person the punishment unless there are two witnesses to testify that he actually did it. Why? Says the Rambam, because maybe the reason is, says the Rambam, because maybe this person is mentally unstable, and therefore he actually wishes to end his life. And one of the ways to do that would be to come to the Jewish court and say, I committed this and this sin, and therefore I am liable to the death penalty. And therefore we do not listen to him because maybe he actually wants to end his life, and a person is not allowed to take their own life. The question is, however, why? Why is a person not allowed to take their own life? Why is a person commanded to take care of themselves and be healthy? Besides for the fact that it's common sense and a person generally wants to be healthy. But let's say a person doesn't want to be healthy. Let's say a person decides that he or she would rather eat junk food and enjoy that than be healthy. I don't care what the result is. Whose business is that? Why does Torah actually care if I'm healthy or not? So, of course, there are many answers to this question. And today we'll just go through three of them. Number one, the BINA Goyla explains the following concept. God gave us a body. The body is a tremendous gift that God provided to us. The body is one of the most complex and complicated, most wondrous creations that was ever created. And that was given to me, that was given to us as a gift to live for hopefully many years. If we do not treat our body properly, that is a lack of gratitude to God. It's like someone who gives you a very expensive gift and you just take it and smash it on the ground and say, no thank you, thanks but no thanks. Right? That is considered a tremendous lack of gratitude. And therefore, since we are commanded to have gratitude to God, part of that is treating the gift that God provided to us, our bodies, properly and keeping it healthy, well, and strong. Then there's another very interesting reason that the chinuch gives. And before I give the reason that he gives, I just want to give the background within which he gives it. So first of all, who is the chinuch? The chinuch is one of the people who are called the moinei ha-mitzvahs, one of the people which count the 613 mitzvahs, because we know that there are 613 mitzvahs. It's just complicated exactly how you count that, because if you would count every single mitzvah as one of the 613, it would actually end up being more than that. So therefore we have to know which ones are counted, which ones are not counted, and there are various opinions. The Rambam does that, and the chinuch does it. The way the chinuch does it is he brings every mitzvah, he brings a couple of laws, details of that mitzvah, and then he brings a lot of times the reasons behind the mitzvahs. This particular mitzvah that we're discussing today is the mitzvah of kosher, keeping kosher. And he says, not everyone agrees with this reason, but he says that the reason for keeping kosher is because it's healthy, because it's good for the body, it keeps the body healthy. And he continues to say a very, very interesting thing. He says if you come across a doctor, or a scientist, or whatever, he doesn't say the word scientist, but he says a doctor, who comes and says, I don't understand how keeping kosher is healthy or how not keeping kosher is unhealthy, then he says, don't worry about that, because first of all, the doctor who told us to keep kosher is a lot smarter than you and him. Meaning, in other words, God, who he's calling the doctor, who told us to keep kosher, obviously knows much more about health than any other doctor in the world, because he's the one who created us, and he knows how our bodies work better than anyone. Secondly, he says a very interesting point. He says, actually, on the contrary, the reason why God made it that we shouldn't understand why keeping kosher is healthy, what about kosher is healthy, and what about not kosher is unhealthy, is because if we would really understand why, we would be able to say, or a doctor would be able to say, okay, if that's the reason, then it only applies in this country where the air is like this, or to this person, or to this circumstance, to this age, and therefore God decided not to give us the information why this is healthy or why this is unhealthy, so we shouldn't be able to decide under which circumstance it applies. But he says that's the fact. The fact is, it is healthy and non-kosher is unhealthy. Then before this, he says, what is the reason why I need to be healthy? And this is the point which I want to bring out. That the soul, he says, has a mission. The soul's mission is, of course, to learn Torah, to keep mitzvahs. The only way the soul can fulfill its mission in this world is through the body. And therefore the body has to be strong. And he brings an example. Let's say I have a builder who wants to build a house. The only way that's going to work is if he has strong tools. If the tools are weak, then no matter how good the builder is, it's impossible to build a building. So too, a soul has a mission, and the soul has tremendous potential, tremendous strength. But the only way the soul can fulfill its mission is if the body, the tool with which he keeps that mission, is strong and well and healthy. So that's the second reason. The third reason really gets to the depth of the issue here. Because the premise of the question was, why do I need to take care of my health if my body belongs to me? But the truth is that the premise is wrong. Because the explanation behind this is like this. Let's say that was true, that the body belongs to me. But there are many things which belong to me. For example, I can have a bottle of milk which belongs to me. I can have a piece of meat which belongs to me. And nevertheless, God says, do not mix the milk and meat. All right? Why? The reason is because God says so. In other words, I don't have to have a reason. However, over here I can say even more than that. That the premise is wrong. That our bodies do not belong to us. Our bodies belong to God. Our bodies were given to us on loan for a certain amount of years, hopefully many years, many long and healthy years. And it is up to us to guard the body which God gave us, which still belongs to God, but just gave to us for safekeeping for a certain number of years. And therefore, it's actually not just like milk and meat, that although it belongs to me, but I can't do what I want with it, because that's what God says. It actually is much more than that. Our body, to begin with, does not belong to us. And therefore, just like if someone lent me a book, I wouldn't be allowed to take that book and put it into a bucket of water and ruin it. So too, the bodies which were given to us are not under our control. We do not have permission to do whatever we want with it. It is up to God to decide what we are allowed to do with it or not. And God decided that it has to be healthy and strong, and therefore it is up to us as much as we can do. Of course, sometimes for reasons unknown to us, God does give us sickness, unfortunately, but as much as it is up to us, as much as is what is under our control, we must keep our bodies healthy and strong. On Thursday, we will discuss more practical applications of various scenarios where this mitzvah would apply. Until then, have a good day.